this video, I will be going over what it's like to be raising chickens from the day you bring them home to the day that you move them out to the coop. So, I wanted ducks for Valentine's Day, and I mentioned it to Daddy. At that time, we were not really prepared or ready to have those ducks. So I'd say it was probably like a week or two later. I came home from work, and Daddy was like, "Hey, I need to go to Rural King." And I was like, "Do you want to go?" And I was like, "Yeah, I like going to Rural King. I like going to Tractor Supply. I love the farm stores." So I told him, "Yeah." So little bit known did I know that I was going to get ducks that day. We get there, we go over to where they keep the live animals, and Daddy tells me, pick out 2 ducks. I picked out 2 ducks. Ended up having to get bedding, because you got to have like the regular pine chip stick bedding. We got feed, which is kind of like a dusty, looks kind of like soy milk. We got them duckling feed, starter feed. We had to also get them a heat lamp. So they have starter kits that comes with a waterer, comes with 2 feeders, and it comes with a heat lamp. And we had to get the heat bulb. We got about a 27-gallon tote for the ducks, because they grow to adult size in about 45 days. And I mean, they're just messy, they're dirty, they stink. The feed, you have to, when we first got them, I had to introduce them to the water by dipping their beak into the water, introduce to their food so they knew where their water and their food was. So I say 3 or 4 days later, Daddy says, I need to go to Rural King. So we go to Rural King again. This time, he had me pick out 4 chickens. I got 2 Rhode Islands, 1 Leghorn, which ended up being a rooster, and I got an Amber Lynx. And we brought them home. We got them, basically the same thing that we got the ducks, except for as chicks, they have to have the medicated feed, because they have respiratory issues when they're young. So we acclimated them. The ducks ended up getting tall quickly, too tall for the tote. So we ended up moving them over to a dog crate, which is an extra large dog crate. Unfortunately, that was a good confinement, but unfortunately, it did not keep in the shavings, the poop, the water. It stunk to high heaven. I had to clean out that crate every day. And of course, right here in their belly, dirty, gross. I filled up a tote of water so they could swim, because they start to get their down feathers, is what their actual adult feathers is known as. So, and you have to wait till they start developing the waterproof oil onto their feathers before you can let them play in the water. So I didn't put a lot of water into a tote, but I put enough in the tote for them to swim around and to clean out their mucous membranes, because that's a daily thing. As far as the chicks go, when we brought them home, we had to actually get another waterer. So we used the mason jar for the chicks, and you have to, when you set the chickens up, you set it up the same way as the ducks. Make sure that the water is on something solid and sturdy, because the chicks like to what they call scratch. They like to dig in their bedding and knock things over, because they like to climb on and perch on whatever they can. And then you introduce them to their water and their feed the same way you do ducks. You just dip their beaks in the water, you dip their beaks in the feed. And then when they start to feather out, get their adult feathers, which starts on their wings, then you can take them outside. That would probably be, I would say they were probably about a month and a half, give or take, and the weather was starting to get nice. It was actually kind of warm outside, so I bring the chickens out, turn around, go in, grab the crate, bring the ducks out, and let them play around outside. Supervised, I'd stay with them because I didn't want them running under the deck or aerial predators swooping down to pick them up. I'd stay right there around them, clean out their tote, clean out the crate, and then about 30, 45 minutes, and then I would put all fresh bedding in, scoop them up, put them in, take them back in the house. Daddy was busting his hump in a time crunch, try and get the coop built, at least get the coop built. So we kept them inside until the ducks were about 2.5 months, and then we introduced them to the coop. Now, with that being said, depending on the weather, when you can actually send them out to live in the coop. As far as the ducks go, they have to have their down feathers. Like, they could come out when it was kind of chilly. We introduced them to the coop. We didn't have the run at the time. And the chickens were still in the house. And at that time we put the chickens out, Daddy was in the process of building this run. So what we did was took the dog crate, put it up against the Dutch door, and that was their run. We'd open up the crate door from the other side and then let them free range. And then we ended up, the chickens, the older chickens, they started getting their adult feathers, down feathers, about a month and a half, two. Well, we got the run up. So with chickens as well, weather permitting, you can actually integrate them or move them to the coop. But you want to make sure that they're full feathers because they have to have a heat lamp up until they fully get feathers. So I would say probably maybe 2 weeks after that, I called Daddy and I was like, oh, I've seen some sapphire gems, some Easter eggers. So we ended up adding 5 new chicks to the flock. 2 Easter eggers, 2 sapphire gems, and 1 midnight majesty. We did things a little bit different with these 5 babies than we did with the older ones. Instead of putting them in the house and having them in a tote and all that, it was warm out, nice. We actually introduced them to the coop and put them with the older chicks. And I know that some people probably will disagree with that and say, no, that's a bad idea. But it actually worked out well for us. I mean, the babies are over here, fine, healthy. They all get along. But when we did get them and put them out into the coop, Daddy did build like a little barrier, an L-shaped barrier that I kept the chicks separate, the baby chicks separate from the older ones. I did not start these babies off with medicated chick feed because we already had our homemade feed that we were feeding the ducks and the chickens, which we will have a video all about that later on. But they have been eating on the homemade feed ever since the first day that they came home. They do grow faster than what I ever thought they would. With the chickens, I'm also experimenting, which I'll get into that when we do the video on the coop, of the deep litter method. It's so much easier. You don't have to clean it out as often. And it's so much nicer. It's much nicer to have the duck out here in his own little coop because he is not stinking up the house, not making a mess in the house. Now that he's outside, he can roam. The chickens, the original 4, but we also noticed that they started jumping, trying to fly. So we knew at that time it was getting time to move them out to the coop because they sit there, they perch on the edge of the tote and try to climb. They'd climb out, they'd actually jump and they'd poop on the ground, on the carpet. They jump out and walk around, and so I knew that they were getting too big for that tote. Daddy was like rushing to get the run up so we could move them because it was time. And that way they could come out, no predators could get them during the day. And you also want to get grits, which I did not, at the time, I did not realize that until we did some research. But the grits actually help the digestive system break down the food because ducks and chickens don't have teeth. So they cannot chew their food like a dog, humans do. So they have to eat the grit, and the grit just sits there in the digestive system, breaks up that food, and then normal digestive process happens. And like I said, we'll have more on that, but for the time being, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it was somewhat information. If you guys have questions, comment below. If you like this video, like, share, subscribe, comment below, and we'll see you on the next video.